Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back. We got another week of virtual math here. We've only got a couple weeks left, which is crazy to think about. But thank you guys for watching. It's Tuesday. It's May 12th. Still in the man cave. Still rocking a different jersey every single day. I went with I think I wore my Peyton Manning Colts jersey last week, but I went with the Broncos jersey today. So you had a chance to do Monday's Fan 5. Again, I'm starting to film these a little bit later, so I've had a chance to see some of my scores coming in. They've been really good. But what I've noticed is on Mondays, with at least my kids, we have started really, really well, maybe gone up a little bit to Tuesday and Wednesday, but by the time Thursday and Friday come around, it's almost like they're going down to Monday or Tuesday numbers. I don't know if that's because maybe people have checked out or they're not giving their best effort. But remember, Friday's that day that we're really, really expecting to see. When I say we, I mean your teachers, really expecting to see your absolute best work. So we're going to bring in the close-up. Dude, look at my hair. There's nothing we can do about it. Quarantine has absolutely taken over. All right, we're going to get right into it here. We're going into number one. And as I looked at all of these, I think all of them except maybe the elapsed time question, we've had something similar during Fan 5 already during virtual learning. So I'm not really surprised that the scores were pretty good starting so far. I've only had 12. But even if we hadn't seen it in virtual learning, you've seen it at some point during the school year. So number one, it says Scooter scored 18 touchdowns this season, which is 3 times as many touchdowns as Lee scored. How many touchdowns did Lee score? So you should have seen 3 times as many. And as soon as I see that, I think about those multiplicative comparison problems. I think about the picture that I can draw. And then what I would start with is I'd pull out the 2 things that I'm comparing. And in this case, I'm comparing Scooter's touchdowns with Lee's touchdowns. So here I've got Scooter, here I've got Lee. Now, before I start drawing my boxes, which we have done in the past, I'm going to put a star by reading the question. I want to know what answer I'm actually looking for. In this case, the question said, how many touchdowns did Lee score? So Scooter's important for the problem, but when it comes to the answer, I'm not even going to look at Scooter. So I'm going to put a star right here beside Lee. That way I know that's where I'm going to get my answer from. All right, so when it said 3 times as many, I've got to decide, was that talking Scooter, was that talking Lee? Well, it said Scooter scored 18, and that was 3 times as many as Lee. So if that was 3 times as many, that means Scooter's going to get 3 boxes, and Lee is automatically going to get 1. All right, so here's where I start picking that information out of the question. If it says that Scooter scored 18 touchdowns, that doesn't mean I put 18 here, 18 here, and 18 here. That would give me a total way above what he actually scored. I just know that Scooter's picture is equal to 18 touchdowns. To figure out what those boxes are worth, I would take those 18 touchdowns, and divide them by 3, not by 4, even though you see 4 boxes. Lee's box has nothing to do with that 18. So I would divide Scooter's 18 touchdowns by those 3 boxes. And you guys know your facts pretty well. You should pretty quickly know that each of those boxes is going to have 6 touchdowns inside. And if the boxes up top have 6 touchdowns, that means Lee's box down below is going to have 6 touchdowns. And if you put the star, you instantly should know, hey, that's going to be my answer. And that would have given me B6. I'm telling you right now, and it might even be today on Tuesday's Fan 5, this is going to be the question that fluctuates the most. There's going to be days where it's 25 out of 30, and there's going to be days where it's 15 out of 30, because you've got to read. It's not always going to ask about the lowest person's total. It might ask about those 2 combined. The picture may look different. You've really got to read that one. This video will help you, but it's not going to do anything if you don't read the question. So I'm letting you know right now, number 1 will be the question that I think is going to change the most, and it's going to have nothing to do with the math. All right, that one should have been B. All right, number 2, it says there were a dozen donuts in a box. Lionel ate 3 5/6 of the donuts. how many donuts remain in the box. First thing you had to know here was you had to know what a dozen was. I think you guys have probably seen a dozen 1,000 times in a word problem. You should know that that is 12. And this is very easy to visualize. If you imagine 12 donuts in front of you and you start to eat them, you notice that those donuts are disappearing. That means you would subtract, and they'll come back eventually. But in this case, you are eating them and you're subtracting them. So we're going to get rid of 3 and 5, 6, the donuts. Hopefully what you don't do here is 12 minus 3 and get 9 and put 5, 6 on the end of it. Because when we're subtracting fractions or we're subtracting mixed numbers, you cannot take a fraction unless you have a fraction. And there's a couple ways you can do it. I'm just going to show you my way. You can look at 12 and clearly see it does not have a fraction. So I can't just do this yet, but I can give it a fraction. And we've done this in the FAM5. I can take away a whole. So I can take that one whole away from 12 and make it 11. And then I can put that whole back as a fraction. And we've talked in the past, I already know what this denominator is going to be based off of the other fraction. If the other fraction is in sixth, this is going to be in sixth. And if I know I'm putting this back as one whole, if it's going to be one whole, the numerator and denominator have to be the same. So it would be 11 and 6 sixths. That looks completely different than 12. They represent the same exact amount. They'd have the same picture. All right. Then I can subtract the other mixed number with no problem. I like to start with the whole numbers, so I'd go 11 minus 3. That would give me 8. Then I can knock out 6 6 minus 5 6. And that would give me 1 6. That means that 8 and 1 6 donuts would remain, which would give me A. And I've said this a bunch of times in the videos. You may get an answer that's not up there. It could mean you have to simplify. You could end up with some type of improper fraction when you're dealing with mixed numbers. Always go through the mental checklist to try to get it figured out before you just pick one that looks close. I could see a boatload of people picking C because of what I told you at the beginning. But remember, do not try to take a fraction unless you have a fraction. And there may be a case where you have a fraction, but it's too small. You can make that fraction bigger by doing the same thing, taking away a whole. And you may run into something like that as well. All right, number 3, this one could go either way because when it comes to rounding, there is an easy way to do it. And I think the people who understand the easy way are going to fly through this question and get it right every single day, which is great. But the people who really struggle with rounding, that way doesn't click for them. I'm going to show a different way. And again, if you're doing it a way that takes you maybe 10 seconds to solve it, you don't have to do it this way. But if you're somebody who misses rounding questions pretty consistently, I'm going to show you another way that could possibly help you moving forward. And it's going to take you a couple times too. It's not something you can just see once and be good. It may take you a couple times watching it, but it says a city in North Carolina has a population of 403,892. What is the population rounded to the nearest thousand? So really this goes back all the way to, I want to say the beginning of the year. I think we might have started with place value, but you got 403,892. First thing you got to be able to do, I wish I would have made that smaller. If I can. Oh yeah. You definitely can't do this question if you don't know where your thousands place is. So start with the 2, you got ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. All right, so whatever place value I'm rounding to, I like to underline it, and then I like to section it off like this. I underline and I section it off. All right, and then I kind of like to compare rounding to a roller coaster. So here's my coaster. All right, so when I think about a roller coaster, you know, you sit down, you get buckled in, you're just kind of hanging out. But as soon as you start climbing that peak, you're getting up to the top of the roller coaster, your heart starts pumping, your excitement level starts going up. So you might start at a 0, but then it might go up to a 1, to a 2, to a 3, to a 4. But when you finally get there and you do that very first drop, you're screaming, you're losing your mind, your heart's pumping out of your chest. You might go from a 5 to a 6 to a 7 to an 8, all the way to a 9 where you're just out of breath. And at that point, you're just loving it. So that's why I think about a roller coaster. When you look at your coaster, your rounding coaster is what we're going to call it. On the left side, we've got 0 through 4. And on the right side, we've got 5 through 9. Okay, that's important. Once I've got my coaster labeled, I'm going to go back to right here where I've underlined and sectioned off a number. Because when I look to the left of that line, I see 403. I'm going to put 403 right here. On the other side of the coaster, I'm going to put the number that comes next. After 403 would come 404. Okay? Once I've got that labeled, I'm still looking at that number in the middle. I'm still looking at what I got sectioned off because I put those numbers on the coaster for a reason. Now I'm going to look at the number next to the line and circle it. So I see there's an 8 right next to the line. I'm going to circle it. Now, that 8 that I circled, is it on the 403 side or the 404 side? It's very clearly on the 404 side. And once I've established that, I have to look and see how many numbers I have next to the line. 1, 2, 3. That means I would add 1, 2, 3 zeros, which if I rounded it would give me 404,000, which would be B. So hopefully you can see what I'm saying, where if you're one of those people who can look at that, look at the number next to where I need to round to, it's bigger than 5, lower than 5, and you know where to go, do it that way. It's going to take you no time. If you really, really struggle with the rounding, watch this video the next couple of days, practice that rounding coaster, and depending on where it tells you to round to, it'll work every time. The number of zeros you add is going to change. The numbers you put at the bottom is going to change. But the coaster and the numbers on the coaster will always be the same. So practice will make perfect on that one. It's a little bit different, but it's always helped students in the past, at least from my experience. All right, number 4 was the only one that we haven't seen in Fan 5 yet, but you guys did elapsed time in 3rd grade. I know that. And you did elapsed time last week in math. So it says the movie started at 7:05 p.m. and it ended at 8:40 p.m. It wants to know how long did the movie last. So if you looked at the presentation like you were supposed to, you should remember mountains, hills, and rocks. Mountains are when an hour passed. Hills can be 5 to 10 minutes, and rocks are going to be 1 minute. And when you're doing elapsed time, you kind of get to do your own thing with how you use mountains and hills and rocks. But sometimes they make it kind of easy on you. So I like to put my start time, which I said was 7:05. And my end time down at the end was 8:40. And you always want to try and see if you can add a mountain. You're not always going to be able to add an hour, but you should try. Now, if it's 7:05 and I add a mountain to that, add 1 hour, that's going to get me to 8:05. So I could do 1 hour right out of the gates. All right. And I would try to add mountains until I can't anymore. But if I added an hour to 8:05, that gets me to 9:05. Can't do that. It's past the end time. So I got to stop with my mountains. But I do know that that's 1 hour. All right. After my mountains, then I'd go to hills, 5 to 10 minutes. I got some space to go. So I'll go ahead and add 10 minutes here. 10 minutes here. Here's my first hill. In 10 minutes, 8:05 would change to 8:15. And I'm just going to put 10 up here. I would try another hill, 8:15 plus 10 minutes, that's going to get me to 8:25. Again, I would try another hill, which would be fine because 8:25 plus 10 more minutes would get 8:35. Now, again, a hill can be 5 to 10 minutes. I can do another hill here, but if I go 10 minutes, it's going to get me to 8:45, which goes past. In that case, I would try my 5-minute hill, which would take me to my end time of 8:40. Then all you got to do is add up all your times. We know it's going to be 1 full hour, but then 10, 20, 30, 35 minutes, which would give me the answer choice of C. And as soon as you did that first mountain, you could have gotten rid of A and B because they don't have a full hour on there. Now for this one, I'd say that's probably the easiest this is going to be this week. You're going to have to end up doing some hills with some rocks. It's not all going to be 5 and 10 minute increments. So you're going to have to, and it's not all going to be mountains either. So it really depends on how you look at it, but they're not all going to end in 0 or 5. So it is going to get maybe a little bit more challenging for some of you. But if you need some reference, you can go back to that slideshow and look at what those mountains, hills, and rocks mean. It's super helpful. You won't miss the question. All right. Last one, and there's a bunch of different ways to do this one. It says Maria has $31.50. She buys 3 milkshakes. Each milkshake costs $3.50. How much money does Maria have left? Well, left means to subtract, but also when you buy something, you spend money, your amount of money gets smaller. So look, you could take that $31.50, subtract $3.50, subtract $3.50, subtract $3.50 all at once. Or you could take $3.50, $3.50, $3.50, add them together, subtract them at once. Or you can take $3.50, multiply it times 3, and then subtract it. There's so many options, but as long as you're doing good math, you're going to get it right. I think I'll do what I said last. If you bought 3 milkshakes and they each cost $3.50, I'd probably start by going $3.50 times 3. All right. It's really like a 3-digit times a 1-digit, but you got to add your decimal. So 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. 5 stays, 1 goes. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. And then the only thing you got to make sure you do is bring down that decimal. Now, $10.50 is not the answer. That's not how much money she has left. That is how much money she's planning on spending on milkshakes. Well, if she's starting off with $31.50 and she's getting rid of $10.50 to figure out what she has left, now I can subtract and get my answer. 0 minus 0 is 0. 5 minus 5 is also 0. I can go ahead and bring down that decimal. 1 minus 0 is 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. That would give me a total of $21, which would give you an answer choice of C. Lots of B's and C's in there. That was not by design, but I just noticed that trend. So you got tons of options on that one. If you didn't do it that way, you don't need to feel pressured to do it that way. If your way works, do it. And I'm guessing it would work every time. All right, guys, so you're about to knock out Tuesday's Fantastic Five. Hopefully you saw something in the video that helped. If not, that's probably meaning you're already getting a 4 or 5 on a Monday, which is a good thing. Hopefully you can keep that trend up. Remember what I said. Thursday and Friday should be the absolute best days, but for my class at least, they've really, really gone down the past couple weeks. So I'm still looking at this stuff. Y'all know how much I love Fan 5. It means a lot to me to see the same people, though, getting 5s all week, going up all week, never going down. Those are the people who I know are really, really working hard. So it does not go unnoticed. So don't think that it does. All right, guys, good luck. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.